Come now, drift with me, past the hush of waking things, into a place where the trees sing at midnight, and dreams grow like fruit in silvered orchards. At the farthest edge of a world half remembered, where the hills folded like sleeping lambs beneath a sky brushed in silver mist, there lay an orchard unlike any other. It was hidden behind a wall of shimmering ivy, woven so thickly that even the stars seemed caught in its embrace. Beyond that green veil stretched row after row of ancient trees, their trunks pale as moonstone, their leaves trembling with a soft, otherworldly light. By day, the orchard slept, silent and still, basking under a sun that seemed to hum a slow, sweet lullaby. But at night, oh, at night, when the first blink of starlight kissed the sky, the orchard woke with a breath so soft it stirred only the lightest petals resting on the ground. The trees began to sing. Not with voices, no, but with the very music of their being. Their branches quivered with silver chimes, and their leaves whispered in delicate harmony, as if the wind itself was strumming some unseen harp hidden deep among the roots. A melody rose, one note at a time, spiraling into the soft dark, weaving through the air like misty ribbons. In the heart of the orchard stood the oldest tree of them all, the grandmother tree, as the wanderers called her, her crown so wide it seemed to cradle the stars themselves. Beneath her sprawling arms, the earth formed a velvet hollow, a secret place where dreams grew thick and sweet as honeycomb. Few had ever found the orchard, for it was a place that revealed itself only to those who wandered without seeking, who drifted between sleep and waking, with hearts open and heavy with wonder. And on this night, a new traveler approached, their presence as soft as a footstep on moss. The orchard felt the ripple of their coming and, with a sigh like 1,000 drowsy breaths, began to weave a melody just for them, a song spun of memory, starlight, and the sweet, aching hush of dreams not yet dreamt. The traveler stepped through the ivy curtain, and the night opened its arms to them. As the traveler crossed the threshold, 1,000 silver leaves fluttered down, catching in their hair, dusting their shoulders, brushing against their cheeks like the fingertips of dreams. Each step forward released a faint, chiming sound, a chorus of tiny bells hidden within the earth itself. The orchard seemed endless, yet every tree felt familiar, as if it were leaning down, smiling in slow delight at the newcomer's arrival. The trunks arched gracefully, their bark etched with delicate, swirling patterns, glyphs too ancient for words, yet so full of meaning that the traveler could almost understand them in the marrow of their bones. The ground was soft and yielding, covered in a quilt of moss that glowed faintly underfoot. Here and there, delicate blossoms floated through the air, pale blues, ghostly pinks, and shades of violet so deep they seemed to drink the light. Each blossom carried its own note, and together they wove an invisible river of music that guided the traveler deeper into the orchard's heart. Above, the sky was no longer simply dark, it was vast and pearlescent, as if the heavens themselves had unfurled a silken scarf stitched with glistening seeds of light. A gentle wind stirred, carrying the orchard's melody far and wide, brushing against distant mountains, whispering across unseen seas. The traveler paused beside a slender tree whose fruit shimmered like drops of frozen dew. As they brushed a hand against one low-hanging bough, a single fruit detached, floating gently into their palms. It was warm, humming faintly, as if cradling a secret too lovely to keep hidden. And just then, a soft, golden figure appeared in the distance, not quite a creature, not quite a spirit, but something between, woven from the orchard's own song. It beckoned, slow and patient, its gestures as fluid as the drifting clouds above. The traveler, heart thrumming with quiet wonder, followed, deeper still, into the orchard where the midnight melodies grew stronger, sweeter, and infinitely stranger. The golden figure led the traveler through winding rows of trees, where the melodies grew richer, layered like soft embroidery. Beneath their feet, the moss shifted in rippling patterns, as though responding to each footfall with a sigh of welcome. At last, they came to a clearing, a pool of quiet light where the grandmother tree stood tallest and widest, her massive branches stretched toward the heavens like ancient arms blessing the sky. Beneath her boughs, nestled in the cradle of her roots, sat a being unlike any the traveler had ever seen, a small figure clad in robes spun from starlight and petals, their face hidden beneath a hood woven of soft green vines. This was the keeper of songs. With hands both delicate and ageless, the keeper plucked from the air shimmering strands of melody, tying them into small, floating knots that pulsed gently with color. Each knot was a memory, a dream, a moment of longing or laughter, preserved like a dewdrop suspended on a spider's silk. The golden guide gave a deep, slow bow and vanished into the whispering trees, leaving the traveler alone with the keeper. For a long moment, neither spoke. The orchard around them thrummed with patient expectancy, as if it, too, was holding its breath. Then the keeper lifted their head, and though no words were spoken aloud, a voice bloomed within the traveler's mind, warm, inviting, threaded with the hush of ancient breezes. "Welcome, dreamer," the voice said. "You have walked far, farther than your feet know. Here, among the singing trees, you may listen, you may remember, or you may dream anew." The traveler, wrapped in wonder, sank down onto the mossy floor and listened, heart open, mind still, soul humming in time with the orchard's eternal song. The keeper's slender fingers moved deftly, plucking one shimmering knot from the air and holding it before the traveler's eyes. Within its delicate glow danced images, soft, blurred, as if glimpsed through a curtain of mist. The traveler leaned closer. They saw a river of stars, winding through a canyon of violet stone. They saw a garden of clocks, each ticking not with time, but with the pulse of 1,000 dreams. They saw a little boat adrift on a sea of glass, carrying a single lamp that never wavered, even when night pressed heavily upon it. Each vision lasted only a breath, yet each left a ripple of feeling, sweet sadness, tender hope, a yearning so soft it barely touched the heart before sliding away again. The keeper wove the knot into a larger tapestry, a web of memories and dreams that stretched high above them, catching the orchard's silver light in its delicate strands. Every knot was a song, every song a story, every story a thread stitched into the endless quilt of the night. The traveler reached out, tentatively, and touched one of the glowing threads. Immediately, a new melody rose, different from the orchard's choir, a soft lullaby, tender and yearning, as if sung by someone far away, waiting, always waiting, by a window lit by a single candle. Tears pricked at the traveler's eyes, though they did not know why. Perhaps it was the simple, aching beauty of it, or perhaps it was the way the song stirred something deep, something long buried but never forgotten. The keeper watched with kind, unseen eyes, saying nothing, allowing the traveler to linger within the melody, to be carried by it, gently, like a leaf floating down a river of stars. As the lullaby faded, the traveler sat in a quiet hush, feeling the delicate aftertaste of the song, like the last sweetness of honey melting on the tongue. Above, the branches of the grandmother tree swayed in slow, sweeping arcs, their leaves brushing the silver air with soft sighs. Every movement released faint echoes, not of sound, but of memory, tiny glimpses of long-forgotten worlds. The traveler gazed upward, and in the weaving branches saw scenes unfolding, tiny, tender moments, a fox curling to sleep in a nest of fallen leaves, a child planting a single seed in a circle of stones, a ship setting out across a misty sea under a crescent moon. The orchard's music grew softer, more intricate, like lace woven from breath and light. It was a music meant not to be heard with the ears, but to be felt, in the tender spaces between heartbeats. The keeper rose without a sound, their starlit robe brushing the moss. With one graceful gesture, they beckoned the traveler to follow once more. Deeper into the orchard they went, along a path that shimmered faintly, visible only when one looked out of the corner of the eye. The trees here were older still, their trunks hollowed by time yet strong, their roots curling and twining like the fingers of dreaming giants. From each hollow drifted a soft hum, the dreams of the trees themselves, ancient and slow, dreams that had grown leaf by leaf, year by year, patient as mountains. And in these dreams, too, were songs, each tree adding its own voice to the endless midnight symphony. The traveler walked on, wrapped in the music, feeling as though they, too, were becoming part of it, a note within the great, breathing song of the orchard. The path curved gently, leading to a glade where the orchard's music hushed to a whisper so faint it was almost silence. Here, in a clearing bathed in the softest light, a light neither of moon nor star, but something tenderer, there stood a garden. It was no ordinary garden. From the mossy floor rose slender stems, each bearing not flowers or fruit, but tiny, delicate bells. The bells were made of spun glass, of pearl and mist, of dreams folded into fragile shapes. They trembled on their stems, glittering faintly, yet they did not ring, not unless touched by the breath of dreams themselves. The keeper paused at the garden's edge, bowing their head in reverence. The traveler, feeling the sacred hush of the place, knelt beside them. In the heart of the garden stood a fountain, but instead of water, it poured mist, curling and coiling like silver ribbons. As the mist drifted outward, it brushed the silent bells, coaxing from them faint, ghostly chimes, notes so soft they seemed to bloom inside the mind rather than the ear. Each bell, the traveler realized, held a single sleeping dream, a hope, a memory, a wish so precious that even the orchard dared not disturb it without cause. The keeper gestured once more, and a single bell floated gently toward the traveler, resting in their open palms. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat. The traveler closed their fingers around it, feeling its warmth, its trembling life, and suddenly, with a sound like the sigh of distant waves, a vision unfolded before them, a path leading beyond the orchard, into lands unseen, where other songs, other stories, waited. The traveler gasped softly, holding the bell close to their heart, as the keeper's voice bloomed within their thoughts once more. Every dream here waits for a dreamer to awaken it, and every dreamer carries a melody of their own, waiting to be sung. The traveler rose, still cradling the small, pulsing bell in their palms. Around them, the silent bells stirred, faint whispers of songs unsung drifting like threads of mist. The keeper watched, silent and patient, as the traveler stepped carefully through the garden, every motion releasing the gentlest chime, a cascade of sighs and memories blooming like unseen flowers. Above the clearing, the mist from the fountain curled upward, weaving into shapes, distant lands, sleeping mountains, oceans that glowed beneath stars. And there, riding upon a thread of silver mist, came a melody, softer than breath, yet so full of longing that the traveler felt their heart catch. It was a song of home, not a home they had known, but a home they had always longed for without understanding why. It smelled of warm rain on stone, tasted of berries plucked under a violet sky, sounded like the rustle of a mother's hand in a child's hair. The traveler lifted their face to the mist, letting the song carry them, weightless as a feather on a current of wind. For a timeless moment, they floated, not walking, not standing, simply being, part of the orchard's dreaming breath. When the traveler opened their eyes once more, they found themselves standing before a new path, narrower, more winding, draped in thick, perfumed blossoms that swayed even without a breeze. The keeper did not follow. Instead, they raised a hand in blessing, and from their fingers spilled a soft rain of stardust that lingered in the air, lighting the path ahead. "This way," whispered the orchard's voice, no louder than the flutter of a moth's wing. "This way, into the place where melodies are born." The travelers stepped forward, the bell still singing softly against their heart. The new path led into a deeper heart of the orchard, a place where the trees grew taller, their branches arching high to form vaulted ceilings of light and shadow. Here, the air was thick with a sweetness that tasted of memory and the first breath of dawn. Every step the traveler took stirred a hush, as though the trees themselves paused in reverence. In the center of this sacred place, there lay a small, shimmering pool. Its waters were utterly still, reflecting not the world above, but some other sky, a sky where unfamiliar constellations burned softly, arranging themselves into strange and beautiful patterns. Around the pool, the trees leaned close, their branches dripping with fruit that glowed like tiny moons. The ground was carpeted with tiny white blossoms, so dense they muffled even the traveler's careful footsteps. The traveler knelt at the pool's edge, gazing into its depths. There, drifting slowly across the mirrored sky, they saw images begin to form, a sleeping child cradled by a lion made of mist, a tower that unraveled itself thread by thread, revealing a path of stars, a river that sang without voice, winding through gardens where time itself lay dozing. Each vision carried a song, soft, barely audible, a music that touched the soul before it reached the ear. The traveler, moved by a deep, unnamed yearning, touched the surface of the pool with one finger. Ripples bloomed outward, and the orchard's melody changed, growing fuller, richer, as though welcoming a long-lost note returning at last to its place in the endless song. The bell in the traveler's hand pulsed once, twice, then slowly faded into the mist, its dream released at last into the waiting world. The traveler breathed in, a long, deep breath full of starlight and hidden gardens, and prepared to follow the next thread of melody, wherever it might lead. From the pool of first dreams, a slender bridge stretched onward, so narrow it seemed spun from moonbeams, so delicate it swayed with the sigh of unseen breezes. The traveler, heart full of new songs and eyes shining with wonder, stepped lightly onto the bridge. Beneath them, the mist pooled thick and silver, rolling in lazy waves, whispering secrets too old for words. Each footstep upon the bridge released a small cloud of petals, soft as snow, warm as breath, and the petals floated down into the mist, carrying echoes of the travelers passing. The farther they walked, the sweeter the air became, laced with the fragrance of night-blooming flowers, of hidden gardens where no sorrow could find a home. Overhead, the branches arched so close that their leaves brushed the traveler's hair, leaving kisses of cool silver against warm skin. Halfway across the bridge, the traveler paused. Ahead, the mist parted, just slightly, and there, dancing at the very edge of sight, were figures woven from light and song. They spun in slow, deliberate circles, their movements so graceful they seemed almost part of the music itself. These were the orchard's oldest dreams, beings who had once been wanderers too long ago, who had given their songs to the orchard in exchange for a place among the eternal melodies. The traveler watched, a soft ache blooming in their chest, not of sadness but of something deeper, a longing to belong, to become part of something vast and beautiful beyond measure. The figures beckoned, not urgently, but with a patience that stretched across centuries, and the traveler knew that when the time was right, they too might join the endless dance of dreams. But not yet. Their path still stretched onward, winding deeper into the orchard's sleeping heart. At the end of the bridge, the traveler stepped into a twilight grove, where the trees grew so closely that their branches tangled together like the fingers of old friends. The ground was carpeted with fallen leaves, pale and dry, which crunched faintly underfoot, not harshly, but like the soft crackle of distant firelight on a winter's night. Here, the melodies were quieter, muted, faded, as though they drifted from some long-ago dream, half-remembered. The traveler moved slowly, reverently, feeling the hush settle around them like a heavy, comforting cloak. Among the trees stood ancient stone markers, draped in vines and moss. Each stone bore a single glyph, a shape that pulsed faintly with light, like a heartbeat slowed almost to stillness. These were the songs that had been lost, forgotten by the world above, but still cradled here in the orchard's endless memory. The traveler knelt before one of the stones and placed their hand upon it. Instantly, a shiver of music stirred, faint, quavering, but alive. A single memory blossomed behind their closed eyes. A boy running barefoot across fields of golden grass. A paper kite dancing against a furious purple sky. Laughter carried on the back of a wild, warm wind. The vision faded almost before it began, leaving behind only a tender ache, sweet and sharp all at once. The traveler understood. No song was ever truly lost. No dream was ever truly forgotten. Here, in the midnight orchard, everything that had ever been loved still lived, cradled in the soft, ceaseless singing of the trees. The traveler rose, heart heavier yet lighter all at once, and continued onward, deeper into the orchard's sleeping embrace. Beyond the grove of forgotten songs, the traveler found a narrow stairway of root and stone, spiraling downward into a hollow beneath the orchard. The air grew cooler, gentler, filled with a hum so deep it was almost beyond hearing, a vibration felt more in the bones than the ears. At the base of the stairway, they stepped into a chamber vast and round, its ceiling a canopy of translucent roots through which the starlight softly pulsed. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal of living wood, and upon it, cradled by delicate tendrils, rested a single, radiant seed. The traveler approached, their footsteps muffled by the thick, soft moss carpeting the ground. The seed was unlike anything they had ever seen, shimmering not with gold, nor silver, but with the color of pure memory, the soft blush of first dreams, the hue of promises whispered in the language of leaves and light. Around the chamber, the walls vibrated gently with the orchard's endless song, and from their depths came the keeper's voice once more. Every song, it said, begins with a single note, and every dream begins with a single seed. The traveler knelt before the pedestal, overwhelmed by the stillness, by the sweetness in the air that seemed thick with the breath of 1,000 forgotten wishes. Slowly, reverently, they reached out, not to take the seed, but to offer something of their own. A single memory rose within them, a glimpse of a long-forgotten face, a voice calling them home, a hand brushing their cheek with infinite tenderness. They breathed the memory into the seed. At once, the seed shivered, and from its core burst a faint, luminous melody, one pure note, so clear and soft it seemed to unspool the very fabric of night itself. The traveler listened, heart wide open, as the chamber filled with light. The light rose higher, spinning slowly, and with it the melodies of the orchard deepened, no longer simply the trees' voices, but the song of the traveler themselves, woven into the endless music. The chamber dissolved into mist. The mist curled upward, lifting the traveler like a leaf, carrying them back through the orchard's dreaming heart, past the grove of forgotten songs, over the bridge of sighing petals, past the garden of silent bells where the bells now stirred softly in greeting. The keeper, standing once more beneath the grandmother tree, lifted their hand in farewell. "Carry it well," the silent voice whispered, "the song you have become." The traveler passed through the ivy curtain once more, stepping back into the sleeping world. But something had changed. Though the orchard faded from sight, its melody remained, a quiet hum stitched into the seams of the night, a warmth carried in the hollow of the heart, reminder that somewhere, beneath the dreaming stars, a song was always waiting, growing, blossoming. The travelers smiled as they drifted into sleep at last, their dreams full of silver leaves, singing rivers, and the eternal, gentle music of the midnight orchard. And the orchard, sensing the travelers' peaceful slumber, sang on, slow and sweet, a lullaby without end. Tucked beneath a willow's weeping arms, a library waits, where books breathe, corridors wander, and stories whisper themselves into your dreams. In a forest where the trees whispered in drowsy voices and the rivers sang lullabies to the mossy stones, there was a place few had ever seen, the sleepy library of Whisperwood. It was hidden beneath the thickest grove of weeping willows, whose silver-green curtains swayed even when the air was still. At the center of the grove stood the oldest willow, her trunk wide as a house, her roots spilling like lazy rivers into the earth. And there, at the base of her gnarled heart, was a door, a small, arched door of faded blue wood, framed with ivy and tiny blooms that smelled faintly of dreams. The door had no handle, no keyhole, only a knocker shaped like a curled fern. It was said that only those who truly loved stories, not for their endings, but for the quiet wandering of them, could find this place, and even fewer could be invited in. On a night stitched with silver stars, when the moon was low and heavy like a pearl dropped into the sky, a traveler found themselves standing before the door. They did not know how they had come, only that their feet had carried them through sighing woods and along sleeping streams, until the willow grove had unfolded before them like a sigh. The traveler raised a hand, hesitating, and touched the knocker. The door creaked open with a sound like 1,000 pages turning in unison, slow, warm, expectant. Beyond the threshold, soft golden light spilled out, thick and velvety, carrying the faint scent of old paper, candle wax, and forgotten flowers. A hush deeper than silence wrapped around the traveler, and with a heart beating slow as a lullaby, they stepped into the library. The door swung shut behind them with a sigh of welcome. Inside, the air was soft and thick, like the hush between dreams. The traveler stood still for a long moment, eyes adjusting to the mellow glow that seemed to drift from nowhere in particular, as if the very walls breathed out the light. Shelves rose in great, winding towers, some so tall they disappeared into the soft, shadowy heights of the ceiling. Each shelf leaned slightly, not from neglect, but from age and a certain lazy fondness, like old cats stretching out in a patch of sun. The books themselves were unlike any the traveler had ever seen. Some covers were bound in woven reeds, others stitched from heavy cloth embroidered with tiny stars. Some books pulsed faintly with a heartbeat of their own, while others exhaled little clouds of scent, lavender, warm bread, rain on stone, each telling its story even before being opened. Every so often, a book shifted, sliding a few inches along its shelf, as if murmuring in its sleep, adjusting itself to a more comfortable position. The traveler wandered down a winding aisle, boots sinking slightly into a carpet woven from moss and old parchment. The floor creaked in soft, friendly ways, like a house that knows and loves its visitors. Along the walls, little windows blinked open and shut, glimpses into other worlds, other times, each framed by ivy and mist. Some showed green fields under endless twilight, others, great seas made of shimmering glass, and some, strange cities where towers swayed like trees in the wind. The traveler reached out a hand and brushed a finger against the spine of a nearby book. It shivered, just a little, and whispered something inaudible, like a secret too soft for waking ears. A soft voice drifted down from somewhere high among the shelves. Choose gently, wanderer, the story you open may dream you into itself. The traveler smiled, slow and wondering, and let their footsteps carry them deeper, where the stories dozed, waiting to be awakened. The traveler walked on, deeper into the heart of the sleepy library, where the shelves grew even taller and the air smelled of old rain and distant fires. Above them, the rafters disappeared into mist, and tiny golden lights floated like fireflies, softly blinking in the hush. Here, the corridors shifted, not all at once, but slowly, dreamily, changing their paths like rivers that forgot their own courses. A doorway that had been to the left might now ripple to the right, and staircases unspooled themselves like lazy vines, inviting the curious to climb. The traveler moved without fear, feeling somehow that the library itself meant no harm, only that it wished to offer endless choices, endless wanderings, endless stories. Along one corridor, the traveler found books that whispered when passed, their pages turning themselves, their bindings breathing in slow, drowsy rhythms. Some books spoke in languages older than time, sighs, laughter, the rustle of autumn leaves. One particularly ancient book stretched itself languidly across two shelves, releasing a soft, spicy scent of nutmeg and cedar. Its title shimmered, half visible. The Geography of Forgotten Winds. The traveler reached toward it, but paused. Instead, they turned down another passage, following the faint strains of music, not music played by any instrument, but the quiet, rippling sound that stories made when they dreamt of being told. The floor here was softer still, a patchwork of worn rugs stitched with stardust and silver thread. The walls leaned closer, as if listening. And ahead, a staircase spiraled downward, its steps worn by the quiet passage of 1,000 wandering souls. The traveler descended, the sound of the dreaming books following them like a gentle tide. At the bottom of the staircase, the traveler entered a cavernous hall, vast and dim, with a ceiling stitched together from layers of night blue cloth, twinkling with tiny stars. The walls were covered, not with books, but with maps, hundreds, thousands, all softly breathing against the stone, like creatures curled in sleep. Each map was alive in its own way. Some curled and uncurled slowly, like leaves stirring in a quiet breeze. Others pulsed with a faint glow, their coastlines shimmering, their mountains shifting like sleepers turning in bed. The traveler moved among them, awestruck. Here was a map of a sea made of glass, each island a shard reflecting a different season. There, a map of a forest where the trees moved each time a dreamer forgot them. And farther on, a vast, fluttering parchment of a city built atop a giant turtle's back, drifting endlessly across a silver ocean. One map, smaller than the rest, floated gently down and hovered before the traveler's hands. It depicted a single road winding through endless twilight fields, a road with no end, only soft, glowing milestones shaped like sleeping faces. The traveler touched the map's edge. Instantly, the parchment sighed, a long, slow exhale, and the traveler felt a warmth bloom in their chest, as if they had just remembered something lovely they had never known. The map folded itself neatly and tucked into the traveler's pocket, light as a feather, weightless as hope. The traveler smiled, a small, slow smile, and moved onward, deeper into the quiet, into the dreaming hush where stories breathed, waiting for a voice to call them awake. Beyond the hall of slumbering maps, the traveler found a narrow passage, lit by lanterns that hung from nothing but thin air. Each lantern was a different shape, some like twisting shells, some like half-open blossoms, and inside each burned a small flame that flickered with colors no eye could name. The traveler wandered down the corridor, and with every step, the light changed, sometimes rose-tinted, sometimes the green of deep forest moss, sometimes soft gold like the very first morning. In the crook of the corridor, they found a lantern larger than the rest, resting on a simple wooden table. It was shaped like a book, its cover folded open, and the light inside seemed to be made not of fire, but of tiny, fluttering pages, each one spinning, murmuring softly to itself. Curious, the traveler leaned closer. The pages inside the lantern whispered stories, not full stories, but beginnings, first sentences full of longing, promises wrapped in sighs. There was once a hill that dreamed of being a river. Beneath the seventh moon, the last garden bloomed alone. Somewhere beyond the maps, a door waited, unknocked and unknowing. Each line brushed against the traveler's skin like a feather. Each line made something deep inside stir, the quiet places where wishes lived before they even had words. The traveler reached out, and as they did, a single page floated from the lantern's light and settled into their open palm. It was warm, pulsing gently, alive. Without thinking, they tucked it carefully into their pocket beside the folded map. The corridor beckoned onward, a soft, sighing path under the ever-shifting lanterns, leading the traveler further into the sleepy library's dreaming heart. The passage spilled into a wide, domed gallery where the walls curved like the inside of a great seashell. Hung upon the curved stone were portraits, but not portraits of people, at least not in the usual way. Each frame contained a scene, a landscape, a storm, a sleeping house, and within each, tiny figures moved, lived, and dreamed, as if the paintings themselves were windows into living worlds. The traveler wandered between them, marveling. In one frame, a tiny fox slept beneath a glowing tree whose branches shimmered with rainbows. In another, a ship sailed through a sea of clouds, its sails stitched from pieces of old lullabies. Yet another showed a garden where clocks grew from the ground like flowers, ticking lazily in time with an unseen heart. The portraits whispered softly to one another, not in words, but in sighs, rustlings, the distant clink of wind chimes. The traveler paused before one frame that seemed dimmer than the rest, a simple painting of a small stone well beneath an ancient oak. Inside the well, something shimmered. A faint reflection of stars not yet born. As they watched, the oak's leaves trembled, and the well's reflection rippled, as if it, too, waited for a dream to find it. The traveler touched the frame lightly, and for a moment, the scent of wet stone and moss filled the air, a promise of something quiet and deep and old. The gallery hummed around them, a low, slow lullaby, as if the very walls sighed with contentment. And so the traveler moved onward, following the drifting music, the soft pulse of endless stories, the call of deeper dreams waiting just ahead. Beyond the gallery of dreaming portraits, a grand staircase unfurled, wide, sweeping, lined with rails carved into curling vines and slumbering birds. But this was no ordinary stairway. Each step was shaped from different kinds of stone, some cool and smooth as river pebbles, others rough like the faces of old mountains. And as the traveler climbed, they felt time itself slow, stretching out long and languid, as if every heartbeat became a soft and endless wave. It was a stair built not to hasten the climber, but to make them linger, to make each moment unfold like the opening of a flower in the hush of dusk. As the traveler moved upward, they noticed tiny clocks embedded in the railings, little brass timepieces, their hands moving at different, drowsy rhythms. Some clocks spun backward, others ticked so slowly that an hour passed with the rise and fall of a breath. Midway up the stair, the traveler paused before a particularly small, delicate clock. Its face was a deep shade of blue, like a twilight sky about to slip into night. And within it, instead of numbers, were tiny constellations, shimmering faintly with golden threads. The traveler leaned close and heard, not ticking, but music, slow, stretching melodies that sounded like the folding of distant storms into sleep. The staircase wound onward, spiraling higher, and the traveler, unhurried, continued, each step a slow, precious echo, carrying them deeper into the library's dreaming heart. Above, the ceiling brightened, not with sunlight, but with a vast canopy of woven mist and starlight, promising that something rare and wondrous awaited at the stair's end. At the top of the stair, the traveler entered a round chamber whose walls shimmered as if made of spun glass. Here, every surface glowed faintly, soft pastels of lavender, seafoam, and golden blush, as if the very air breathed in color. In the center of the room stood a great table, its surface polished until it mirrored the skies. Upon it were scattered hundreds, perhaps thousands, of tiny scrolls, each tied with a slender ribbon of mist. The traveler approached carefully. Each scroll was a wish, not shouted or demanded, but whispered, soft-spoken hopes folded into the smallest spaces of the heart. Some wishes trembled gently when brushed by the passing air, others lay still, as if sleeping in deep trust. A few fluttered their ribbons invitingly, as if sensing a kindred spirit nearby. The traveler picked up one scroll. It was very light, almost weightless, and untied the misty ribbon with fingers trembling with reverence. Inside, in the smallest handwriting, was written, "I wish to find a place where the sky is always dreaming." The words melted into the air as they were read, becoming a faint, shimmering thread that drifted upward into the misty ceiling, joining the endless weave of quiet longing. The traveler's heart warmed, feeling the beauty of so many quiet dreams gathered together, dreams so gentle they might have been lost in the wide, loud world outside, but here they were treasured, kept safe, softly breathing. A breeze stirred, warm, carrying the scent of old parchment and distant rain, and a door, hidden before, revealed itself behind a curtain of woven light. The traveler smiled, a slow, deep smile, and followed the call onward, deeper into the dreaming library. Through the hidden door, the traveler stepped into a narrow hall where the air shimmered with 100 soft voices, not speaking loudly, but murmuring in the kind of hush that filled the spaces between dreams. The walls were draped with long banners of cloth, gossamer thin, and upon each, names were stitched in thread that gleamed faintly under the mellow light. Not just names of people, but names of places, moments, even forgotten songs. Each name whispered its own story into the air, not whole tales, but fragments, the laughter of a child at twilight, the creak of a boat's rope in a misty harbor, the scent of bread cooling on an open window ledge. The traveler moved slowly, trailing fingers across the delicate banners. Where their hand brushed the fabric, the whispers grew clearer for a breath, a small, luminous memory lifting into the air like a moth from a blade of grass. Near the far wall, they paused before a banner woven of indigo and moonsilver. Upon it was stitched simply, "The first door opened." The whisper it gave was like the sound of a lock turning somewhere deep inside the heart, a feeling of being welcomed, of stepping into a place meant for the soul alone. The traveler stood a long moment in that soft hush, eyes half closed, feeling the room breathe with them, a slow, ancient rhythm of remembering. A path, thin and glimmering, wound out from the far side of the hall, beckoning onward with a promise of deeper wonders still. The traveler, heart heavy and light all at once, stepped forward once more. The path led to a nook, a small, round room tucked away like a secret held close in cupped hands. The walls here were shelves too, but smaller, lower, and each shelf was filled not with finished books, but with blank ones, books waiting for their first word. Each blank book pulsed faintly with possibility, their covers soft as velvet, their pages whispering with a restless kind of hope. The traveler sat down upon a low cushion placed there, inviting and warm, and picked up one of the books. The pages fluttered open, revealing nothing yet, only the faint scent of rain beginning to fall on dry earth. A quill rested beside the cushion, no inkpot needed, for the library knew that the ink would be drawn from the dreamer's own heart. The traveler smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, and touched the tip of the quill to the first page. Instantly, a line appeared, not written, but breathed into the page, as natural and inevitable as a seed unfolding into a tree. There was once a library where stories slept, waiting not to be told, but to be dreamed. The book warmed under the traveler's hands, humming gently, and a faint chime rang from somewhere high among the dreaming rafters. The traveler understood then. The sleepy library did not merely preserve old stories. It grew new ones, patiently, softly, in the slow and sacred language of night. The traveler bent over the blank book, heart full, soul luminous, and began to dream their story onto the page, each word a soft footstep into a new, unseen land. When the traveler finally rose from their cushion, the book in their hands was no longer blank. It pulsed with quiet life, a new story, a new dream, woven into the living memory of the library itself. The traveler slipped the book onto an open space on the nearest shelf. Immediately, the shelf gave a little creak of welcome, as if shifting slightly to cradle the newborn story among its sleeping brothers and sisters. A soft breeze stirred the air, scented with wild mint and old parchment. Following the whisper of the breeze, the traveler stepped through another doorway, smaller still, leading to a hidden archive. This was the archive of silent lullabies. Here, thousands of soft songs rested, not sung aloud, but folded carefully into crystal vials, each glowing faintly with color. Pale blues, dusky rose, deep lavender, the colors of evenings when the world holds its breath, of moments just before dreams take wing. Each vial held a lullaby once hummed to a child, or whispered to a lonely star, or exhaled by the earth itself in its slow turning. No two were alike. The traveler moved among the shelves, brushing their fingers along the glimmering glass, feeling the soft trembling of unspoken songs against their skin. One vial floated gently into their palm, its glow the color of soft snow under moonlight. As they cradled it, the lullaby inside stirred, a sound without words, a melody of belonging and deep, endless peace. The traveler closed their eyes and listened, heart open, until the melody curled itself around their spirit like a warm, silken blanket. And when the lullaby faded, they slipped the vial carefully back into its cradle, feeling, somehow, more whole than before. The traveler wandered one last time through the golden-lit halls of the sleepy library. They moved slowly now, unhurried, as if each step was a goodbye wrapped in wonder. The shelves leaned closer, the books sighed in their sleep, and soft winds carried invisible threads of song through the misty rafters. At last, the traveler found themselves once more before the blue door beneath the great weeping willow. But now, they saw it differently, not merely a doorway, but a living breath, a threshold stitched with dreams and silent promises. The door opened at their approach, and the traveler stepped through. Outside, the night was deep and endless, the stars blinking slowly like drowsy eyes. The air was cool, and the willow's leaves whispered in slow, affectionate sighs. In their pocket, the traveler still carried the folded map, the soft lantern page, and the echo of many lullabies stitched into the threads of their heart. The traveler smiled, a slow, wide smile, and began to walk, the soft moss brushing against their boots, the night carrying them forward. Behind them, the sleepy library of Whisperwood dozed on, patient and unhurried, its stories breathing in endless, silver dreams, waiting for the next quiet heart to find its door. And somewhere among the soft winding paths of the world, a new dream began to grow, its first pages fluttering open like a sigh on a still and starlit night. Far above the clouds, where stars are born in silence, a weaver spins the sky with threads of forgotten dreams and moonlight songs. High above the tallest peaks, beyond the sighing winds and the reach of earthly birds, there floated a place unseen by waking eyes, the loom of the sky weaver. Suspended in a cradle of silver mist, hidden within the folds of ever-shifting clouds, the loom spun day and night, weaving the fabric of dreams into the skin of the sky. The sky weaver herself was old as the first breath of the world, and yet no older than a newly opened flower. Her hair was spun of moonlight, her robes stitched from the blue of distant mountains, and her hands, soft and steady, moved with the patience of centuries. Her loom was vast and shimmering, built from beams of starlight and threads of forgotten wishes. It stretched across the sky's secret chambers, humming with a song so deep and soft that even the stars blinked slower when they heard it. Each night, as the last ember of sunset slipped beneath the world's edge, the sky weaver would sit at her loom and begin her work. With each thread she wove, a dream was born, a river flowing backward into the sky, a field of flowers that sang when touched by the wind, a staircase carved from mist leading to nowhere and everywhere at once. No two nights were the same. No two patterns ever repeated. Tonight, as the crescent moon floated like a sleeping boat on a silver sea, the sky weaver chose her threads carefully. One spun from a child's laughter, another from the sigh of a willow tree in winter, another from the first hopeful heartbeat of a dream not yet dreamt. She lifted her shuttle, crafted from the bone of a fallen star, and set the threads singing across the loom. The sky quivered with delight, and a new tapestry, unseen but deeply felt, began to unfurl above the sleeping world. The sky weaver's hands moved slowly, tenderly, as if each thread she touched were a living thing, fragile and dear. Around her, the great tapestry swelled and flowed, colors and shapes blooming and fading like breath upon a windowpane. She wove in rhythms older than time, patterns shaped by tides that ebbed before the first river flowed, by winds that sang before mountains had names. And always, woven deep into the threads, were the forgotten lights, tiny fragments of dreams once dreamt and lost, now gathered like scattered seeds. Tonight, among her many threads, the sky weaver found something rare, a strand woven not of sound, nor scent, nor memory, but of pure longing. It shimmered faintly, trembling against her fingers, tender and wild. Gently, she wove it into a corner of the tapestry, a small place, tucked away, where the stars would seem a little closer, and the wind would carry songs that no one remembered learning. As she worked, the sky above the world slowly changed. Where once there had been a simple stretch of darkness, now there bloomed a river of soft lights, stars arranged like stepping stones across a great, gentle sea of velvet blue. Somewhere below, a traveler sleeping beside a lonely fire stirred and smiled. A child in a cradle turned toward the window and sighed with contentment. An old gardener, dozing beneath a grapevine, dreamed of a silver bridge arcing across the night. The sky weaver smiled too, though no one could see. Her loom thrummed softly, steady and sure, weaving comfort into the very bones of the world. The night deepened, and still she worked, tireless and tender, stitching dreams into the wide, sleeping sky. Far across the sky's great canvas, the sky weaver turned her gaze to a space that had remained untouched for many nights, a hollow place, dim and soft, like a breath held too long. There, the stars gathered loosely, scattered like seeds not yet given a name. The weaver had passed over this space many times. Not from forgetfulness, oh no, but from a quiet knowing that some patterns bloom only when the time is right. Now, the hollow called to her, gently, but clearly. A low hum in the tapestry's breath. A ripple through the starlit air. She reached for her pouch of oldest threads, ones made from thoughts that drifted too softly to be spoken aloud, from wishes whispered to the sky with no words at all. Some threads were pale as pearl blush, others clear as the space between snowflakes, some warm, with the golden hue of a candle held in trembling hands. Carefully, she wove them into the empty patch, one by one. As she worked, the shape began to form, not a creature or a crown, not a sword or will like other constellations known to humankind. No, this was a listening shape, open and quiet, like a cradle, or a folded hand, or a doorway half ajar. And when it was complete, the new constellation glowed faintly, not bright, but deep, a comfort more than a sight. Below, in a quiet house by a quiet lake, someone dreaming of a lost friend turned in their sleep, and smiled. The sky weaver paused, hands resting lightly on her loom. The stars leaned in, the wind held its breath, and the sky exhaled peace. It was rare for the sky weaver to have company. Rarer still for that company to arrive gently. But tonight, as the stars blinked slower and the tapestry shimmered in its fullness, a ripple passed through the air, not a storm, not a cry, but something soft, something like a voice carried on a dandelion seed. The weaver looked up. A breeze drifted into her chamber, not from the world below, but from the deep edges of the sky, where even light travels with care. On the breeze rode a small being, no taller than a teacup, wrapped in robes stitched from the blush of dawn. It was a windling, one of the rare skykin who gathered the forgotten sighs of the world and braided them into invisible ribbons that tied time together. The windling hovered beside the loom, its wings flickering like candlelight in still air. Without words, it offered a single, silken thread, translucent, glimmering faintly with blue. The sky weaver accepted it with a bow of her head, and the loom hummed in quiet gratitude. This thread, oh, this one, was special. It had been drawn from the breath of someone who no longer remembered how to dream, but still, deep in sleep, had reached out for something, anything, to hold. The sky weaver wove it gently, placing it among the stars that watched but never spoke. And as it settled into the tapestry, it shimmered, just once, and was still. The windling gave a nod, folded its wings, and vanished into the soft hush, leaving only a trace of warmth and a single swirling gust. And high above, the sky held the thread close. The next thread the sky weaver drew forth was wrapped in the scent of wet earth, the soft perfume of rainfall after a long silence. It glowed with the gentle gray of dusk clouds and carried the quiet rhythm of falling water. This was a thread of remembering, woven from a dream left behind by someone who once danced in the rain without knowing why their heart had felt so light. A memory buried, but never fully lost, like a puddle holding the whole sky in its shallow mirror. The weaver guided the thread through the loom, her fingers moving with care. Each pass of the shuttle brought a soft, echoing sound, as if tiny droplets were falling somewhere far away, striking leaves and window panes. As the thread slid into the fabric of the night, the stars blinked gently, and for a moment, the scent of rain drifted across the entire sleeping world. Children in cities dreamed of umbrellas blooming like flowers. A fox in a den dreamt of puddles beneath fire-lit skies. An old man in a silent room turned in his sleep and saw the face of someone he had once kissed beneath a thunderstorm. And above it all, the sky weaver smiled. Not because she had made the dreams, but because she had remembered to give them room to bloom. The loom thrummed, slow and low, a sound like thunder softened by great distance. And the sky, wide, gentle, endless, grew just a little more tender. As the tapestry neared completion, the threads began to hum more quietly, the colors deepening, the glow softening into something that could not be seen, only felt. The sky weaver stepped back. She studied her work not with pride, but with the kind of still joy found in watching fog roll gently across a lake or a cat breathing slowly in sleep. There was still one final space, not large, not grand, just a tiny gap between two pale stars. Into that space, she placed no thread. Instead, she left it empty, but not forgotten. A silence woven intentionally, like the pause between two notes that gives the music room to rest. The stillness in the lullaby. The hush between heartbeat and breath. It was a space for the dreamer, for the listener, to place their own meaning. Some would see a path through that gap, others a door left ajar, others still a single, silent question, what if? The sky weaver pressed her hand to the loom. The tapestry shimmered once, then settled. It would now drift slowly across the heavens, unrolling its quiet beauty hour by hour, until the sun's golden fingers gently unwound it again. And somewhere far below, across countless rooftops and forest clearings, someone, perhaps many someones, would look up into the night and feel, without knowing why, a little less alone. When her tapestry was finished and drifting across the sky like a river of light, the sky weaver stepped down from her platform, her robe trailing behind her like the last whisper of twilight. But the night was not yet done. At the far edge of her quiet chamber floated a ladder, not made of wood or rope, but of fireflies. They blinked in slow rhythm, hovering in place, their tiny lights pulsing like tiny lanterns woven from breath. Each rung glowed softly under her feet as she descended, not downward, but inward, into the quiet place where all unspoken dreams gathered before being born. The firefly ladder led her to the low chamber of beginnings, a round, still place, wrapped in velvet hush. Here, no tapestry had yet been spun. No star placed. No song sung. But the walls shimmered faintly with things not yet made, dreams not yet dared. The sky weaver knelt in the center of this chamber, her hand resting over her heart. She closed her eyes, and listened. Not to voices, nor winds, nor stars. She listened for the softest thing of all, the breath of a new longing, a dream just beginning to bloom in the heart of someone far below. And as she waited, a single pulse stirred the air. So faint. So fragile. So new. It was enough. She opened her eyes, and smiled. From within the folds of her robe, the sky weaver withdrew a small spindle, no larger than a curled leaf. It was empty, waiting. And yet, when she breathed upon it, a single thread began to form. This thread had no color. Not yet. It shimmered faintly, like dew before the morning light touches it. This was a thread of not yet, of a dream so new, so shy, it had not found its shape, its song, or even its name. The sky weaver cradled it gently, turning it slowly, allowing it to find its rhythm. She would not weave it into the tapestry just yet. No, this thread was not meant to be placed, but kept. It would travel with her for a time, tucked inside the folds of her robe, warming quietly beside her heart. When it was ready, when the dreamer below, whoever they were, whispered just loud enough in their sleep, the thread would glow, and she would know. Then, and only then, would it join the stars. The sky weaver stood once more. Behind her, the firefly ladder waited, glowing faintly, ready to lift her gently back to her loom. The sky outside shimmered with her latest tapestry, the constellations brighter, the spaces between them more tender, the hush of night deeper than before. And within her palm, the not yet thread pulsed once, soft and certain, like the first step of a dream beginning to walk. As the sky weaver rose once more into her celestial loft, the wind curled gently around her, not strong, not loud, but like the sigh of a contented breeze. She stood before a great round mirror, framed in branches of silver birch and woven moongrass. This was the mirror of quiet stars, and it did not show reflections, not in the way earthly mirrors do. Instead, it showed what the stars remembered, the dreams they had cradled, the promises they had kept. Within the glass shimmered scenes not of past or future, but of essence, soft moments caught like fireflies in a jar of memory. There, the weaver saw a girl painting stars on her bedroom ceiling, believing they would keep her safe. She saw an old man giving away his last candle to light someone else's way. She saw a fox curled around its cubs, blinking sleepily beneath the aurora's glow. Each dream the stars had watched, each kindness unnoticed, drifted gently across the mirror's face. The sky weaver placed her palm upon the glass, and for a moment, her tapestry above pulsed in answer, a ripple of light moving through the constellations like a heartbeat shared. And then, very faintly, in the bottom edge of the mirror, a new image began to form, hazy, delicate. A figure in sleep, a hand reaching, a longing not yet shaped into words. It was the dreamer, the one whose thread she now carried. Soon, the time would come. The sky weaver returned to her loom, not to weave, but to wait. The tapestry of the night stretched wide before her, its colors slowly settling, its stars blinking with slow comfort. Though it was complete, it still breathed, not like a final work, finished and set, but like something alive, always listening, always gently shifting. She walked its length slowly, fingertips brushing across its threads. Each touch sent soft pulses through the weave, awakening small, unseen songs that lived quietly beneath the visible stars, lullabies stitched into corners, dreams curled like shells within folds of darkness. And there, near the middle, she paused. A small space, one she had not noticed before, shimmered faintly, like a pocket of wind caught inside cloth. Not a mistake. Not an absence. A welcoming. It was waiting. The thread in her robe pulsed gently. It had found its place. The weaver drew it forth, and for a long moment, simply held it, watching its color shift ever so slightly, becoming something warm, something gold-tinged, with a soft silver glow at the edges. Without haste, she bent to her loom. And with one final, tender motion, she wove it in, slow, complete, perfect. The tapestry breathed once, a single wave of quiet light rolling across the sky. And somewhere far below, a sleeper smiled in their slumber, tears caught in the corners of dreaming eyes. A dream had found its way home. With the final thread in place, the sky weaver stepped away from the loom. The tapestry now drifted in its full grace across the heavens, wide, endless, tender. Its constellations blinked with slow knowing. Its spaces hummed with quiet hope. And the thread she had just woven, the thread of pure not yet, now glowed softly in its cradle of stars, like a seed that had found warm soil beneath the snow. The sky weaver sat upon a clouded cushion at the edge of her chamber, her gaze turned upward to her own work, not in pride but in peace. Above her, one by one, the stars began to blink slower, slower still, until some seemed to sigh into sleep, their light dimming just slightly, like candles retreating into calm. Each star would awaken again, as they always did. But for now, they rested, held safely in the folds of the woven sky. The weaver closed her eyes, listening to the breath of the universe. In this moment, this quiet, golden pause, nothing hurried. Nothing asked. Nothing ached. Only the slow, deep comfort of everything being exactly as it was meant to be. The sky sighed. The tapestry exhaled light. And the weaver remained still, wrapped in the soft hush of starlit completion. Morning had not yet come. The sky still held its velvet hush, and the winds had not yet begun to stir the dreaming trees below. But somewhere faint and far, the light of dawn began to gather, slow and golden, behind the curve of the world. The sky weaver stood once more. She returned the spindle to its pouch, its task complete for now. She folded her hands in front of her heart and turned once more to her loom, not to weave, but to thank. The loom stood quiet, its thread still singing faintly, like a lullaby remembered in sleep. With a final gesture, the weaver plucked a single hair from her own silver braid, and wove it gently into the corner of the sky. A gift. A promise. A beginning. This thread would not glow brightly. It would not sing loudly. But it would wait, silently, for the next dreamer to open their heart, to look up at the stars, and whisper something soft into the dark. When that happened, whenever it came, the thread would stir. The loom would hum. And a new night would begin. The sky weaver stepped into the mists and vanished, carried on wind-woven paths that only she could see. And above, the sky held her gift. Soft. Steady. Eternal. A dream always waiting, just behind the stars.